Surrender is the first step to peace, because the moment you release your need to control every outcome, your heart begins to breathe again. So often, anxiety grows in the soil of resistance, the fear of what might happen, the constant replay of what already did, and the desperate attempt to force life into your own design. The more you fight the decree of Allah, the heavier life becomes. The more you insist that things must happen your way, the more your soul feels crushed under the weight of expectations. But when you begin to surrender, not to hopelessness, but to divine wisdom, something shifts within you. You begin to see that control was never really yours. It was an illusion that fed your fear and starved your faith. Surrender in Islam is not defeat. It is a conscious choice to align your heart with the rhythm of divine order. It means saying, I trust that what comes is meant to come, and what leaves was never meant to stay. It means no longer running from pain, but meeting it with understanding that even pain has purpose. The Prophet A taught that even the prick of a thorn wipes away sins. This awareness transforms anxiety into acceptance, and acceptance into tranquility. When you surrender, your perspective changes. You stop viewing obstacles as punishments and begin to see them as pathways. You realize that Allah's delay is not His denial, that His silence is not His absence, and that His tests are not meant to break you but to build you. Every hardship carries a message, and surrender allows you to hear it. The anxious heart, on the other hand, is too loud with questions to listen. But the surrendered heart whispers, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Allah is sufficient for me, and He is the best disposer of affairs. Surrender is not about giving up effort. It's about giving up resistance. You still act, plan, and strive, but with the calm assurance that the outcome is already written. You work not from fear, but from faith. You move not in panic, but in peace. The heart that surrenders knows that nothing missed it, because it was never meant for it, and nothing will reach it unless it was decreed. Your heart was never meant to rely on this world, because it was created to belong to something far greater, far purer, far more lasting than anything temporary. Every moment of anxiety, disappointment, or heartbreak is a quiet reminder that the world was never designed to hold the weight of your soul. You were not created to anchor your peace in people who change, or in circumstances that shift with time. When you depend on what fades, your peace fades with it. But when your heart learns to rely on the one who never changes, you discover a stability this world cannot shake. The human heart is delicate. It was not built to carry the burdens of endless expectations, validation, or control. Yet, we often hand it over to the very things that are unstable. We give our hearts to people, hoping they'll stay forever. We depend on money, believing it will secure our worth. We attach to status, thinking it defines our identity. But everything in this world is fleeting. When these things are taken, the heart that relied on them begins to break, and that breaking is not cruelty, it's mercy. It is Allah's way of guiding you back to Him, reminding you that peace can only come from the source of peace. This world constantly changes. It's designed to be a place of transition, not destination. The more you root your heart in it, the more you feel anxious whenever it moves. You can't find lasting comfort in what's temporary. You can't find eternal peace in what's meant to end. True reliance begins when you stop chasing fulfillment through creation and turn back to the Creator. Every disappointment becomes easier to bear when you know it's redirecting you towards something higher. Every loss becomes softer when you understand it was never yours to keep. Allah says in the Quran, and whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him. This verse is not just guidance, it's healing. It means you don't have to exhaust yourself trying to hold together what was never meant to last. You don't have to fear the instability of life when your trust is anchored in the one who controls all things. The heart that relies on Allah is no longer shaken by worldly changes. It becomes steady like a tree rooted deep in faith, bending with the wind but never breaking. When your heart stops expecting perfection from imperfect things, you free yourself from endless pain. You stop asking this world to be what it cannot be. Your source of peace, your savior, your home. The world was only ever a mirror reflecting your attachments, showing you where your heart still clings. When you recognize that, detachment stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like liberation. Because the moment you unchain your heart from this world, you allow it to rise toward the one it was always meant to rely on. Dhikr is the antidote to inner turmoil because it is the remembrance that pulls the heart out of darkness and returns it to light. In a world overflowing with noise, worry, and distraction, the heart easily becomes restless. It wanders through endless thoughts, fears of tomorrow, regrets of yesterday, pressures of today. But when you pause and remember Allah, that wandering heart finds its direction again. Dhikr is not just a ritual of the tongue. It is medicine for the soul, a lifeline for those drowning in anxiety. It purifies the heart from the toxins of this world, overthinking, comparison, doubt, and attachment, and replaces them with calm certainty that Allah is near. The Quran says, "Verily, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest." This verse is not poetry, it's a prescription. The heart was created to beat in harmony with the remembrance of its creator. When it forgets Allah, it becomes sick. When it remembers Him, it begins to heal. You may notice how everything else that promises comfort eventually fails. Entertainment distracts you temporarily. People comfort you momentarily. Success satisfies you briefly. But only Dhikr brings a peace that lingers long after the words are spoken. Each time you say Subhanallah, you remind yourself that Allah is free from imperfection. Each time you say Alhamdulillah, you remind yourself that everything, even hardship, holds a hidden blessing. Each time you say Allahu Akbar, you remind yourself that no problem, no person, no pain is greater than your Lord. Dhikr softens what life hardens. It melts away the crust that pain builds around the heart. The moment you remember Allah sincerely, you are no longer lost inside your own thoughts. You rise above them. You begin to see your trials through the lens of divine wisdom rather than emotional chaos. Inner turmoil often comes from trying to solve everything alone. But Dhikr is the moment you stop fighting life with your mind and start surrendering to it with your soul. It reminds you that you are never alone, that Allah hears your whispers before you even speak them, that He knows the tremors behind your calm face and the tears behind your silence. Dhikr also rewires how you experience reality. The one who remembers Allah walks through storms with a steady heart because remembrance becomes a shield. When anxiety knocks, Dhikr answers. When fear whispers, Dhikr silences it. The Prophet said that the example of one who remembers Allah and one who does not is like the living and the dead. Without Dhikr, the soul suffocates beneath the weight of worldly worries. With Dhikr, it breathes again. Every time your lips move in remembrance, angels surround you, mercy descends upon you, and your heart begins to align once more with divine rhythm. Dhikr is not limited to words. It is a state of being. You can remember Allah while working, driving, cooking, walking, or crying. The heart that constantly remembers Allah becomes untouchable by despair. It doesn't mean life stops being hard. It means your inner world becomes unshaken by its hardness. When you carry Dhikr in your heart, peace follows you like a shadow. You start to feel Allah's presence in every moment, in the silence of dawn, in the chaos of crowds, in the ache of loneliness, in the stillness of prayer. Dhikr turns every space into a sanctuary, every breath into worship, and every hardship into a bridge toward closeness with the one who brings calm after every storm. What you lose was never yours to keep, because everything you hold in this world, every person, every blessing, every opportunity is only on loan from Allah. Nothing here truly belongs to you, not even your own heart. Everything you touch, love, or depend on is temporary, and every loss you experience is simply life returning what was always borrowed. The pain of loss feels unbearable because the human heart tries to claim ownership over what was only meant to pass through. You see, when you believe something is yours, you fight to keep it. But when you understand it was never truly yours, you begin to find peace even in letting go. Every loss carries a hidden mercy. It comes not to destroy you, but to detach you from illusions that hold you back from Allah. When you lose someone you love, it hurts not only because they're gone, but because your heart had tied its stability to their presence. When you lose success, money, or recognition, it shakes you because you thought those things defined your worth. But the truth is, Allah takes only to give, and He removes only to redirect. Every ending is a doorway disguised as pain. What you lose was never yours to keep, because if it were truly yours, nothing in this universe could have taken it away. Allah reminds us in the Quran, to Allah belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth. This means that even the people you love most are a trust from Him. You are not the owner, you are the caretaker. You are entrusted with blessings, relationships, health, time, dreams, and your role is to use them in gratitude, not cling to them in fear. The moment you try to hold on to them tighter than your trust in Allah, they begin to slip through your fingers. This world was never meant to be a place of permanence. It's a passing station on the journey to the eternal, a mirror that reflects the truth that nothing stays except the Creator. Loss reveals where your heart truly resides. It exposes the attachments that quietly grew stronger than your faith. It shows you what you worshipped without realizing it. For many, it takes losing something precious to understand that peace cannot come from possession. You may lose what you love, but you never lose what you were meant to learn. Allah does not allow anything to leave your life unless it has already fulfilled its purpose. Every relationship, every opportunity, every season of your life carries a lesson written for your growth. When it departs, it takes with it what was no longer meant for you, and it leaves behind wisdom you couldn't have gained any other way. There's a beautiful shift that happens when you begin to view loss through faith instead of fear. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start understanding, this happened for me. You start realizing that what feels like breaking is actually shaping. Sometimes Allah removes what you want to make room for what you need. Sometimes He closes doors to protect you from what you can't yet see. Sometimes He lets people walk away so you can finally walk toward Him. Every loss has meaning when you trust the one who ordains it. The Prophet know that what has passed you by was never meant to befall you, and what has befallen you was never meant to pass you by. This hadith is not just a comfort, it's a map to peace. It teaches that there is divine order. Even in what feels like chaos, you can cry, grieve, and ache. Because Islam never asks you to suppress your humanity. But through it all, you remember that your loss is not without purpose. The heart that trusts Allah learns to hold things lightly. It loves deeply, but never desperately. It gives thanks without fear of taking. It prays not for control, but for contentment. When you stop trying to keep what was never meant to stay, you make space for what is meant to come. You start to live with open hands instead of clenched fists. You begin to find peace in knowing that everything you lose in this world is replaced with something better in the next. Sometimes the better is clarity Sometimes it's closeness to Allah. Sometimes it's strength you never knew you had. What you lose was never yours to keep, but every loss you bear with patience becomes a seed of reward in eternity, where nothing good is ever taken and nothing loved is ever lost. Patience is not passive, it's spiritual power. It is one of the most profound acts of faith, one that transforms pain into strength and chaos into clarity. Patience, or sabr, is not about doing nothing or simply waiting for things to get better. It is the deep spiritual discipline of trusting Allah's timing while continuing to do your part with grace, courage, and hope. Many misunderstand patience as weakness, as silence, inaction, or resignation, but in Islam, patience is an active form of worship. It is the heartbeat of resilience, the quiet strength that allows a believer to stand firm while everything around them seems to fall apart. When the Qur'an mentions patience, it does so with honor. Allah promises that He is with the patient, not just watching over them, but with them, guiding, comforting, strengthening. This closeness to Allah is the hidden treasure of every test. The world may see someone enduring difficulty and think they are powerless, but in reality, they are standing under divine protection. Patience is power because it allows you to continue believing in goodness when nothing looks good, to continue trusting in mercy when life feels merciless, and to continue walking in faith when the path is covered in uncertainty. Patience is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of meaning within the struggle. It doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means you choose not to let pain define you. The patient heart cries, but it cries to Allah, not to despair. It feels sadness, but does not drown in it. It experiences fear, but remembers that fear is also under the control of the one who created it. This is the kind of patience that gives you strength in silence, that teaches you to breathe through difficulty and to see every delay as a form of divine design. There are moments when patience feels unbearable, when you want to scream for answers that don't come, when you want relief, but instead receive another test, when you pray and wait some more. Those are the moments when patience becomes an act of worship. It is in those quiet hours of struggle that your heart learns to whisper, I still trust you even when I don't understand. This is where the soul matures, where faith deepens, and where you realize that patience isn't about waiting for Allah to act. It's about staying loyal to Him while He works in unseen ways. In a world that glorifies instant results and quick relief, patience feels unnatural. We live in a time where every desire has a shortcut, every question demands an immediate answer, and every delay feels like rejection. But divine timing is not human timing. The believer understands that every pause, every setback, every unanswered prayer is preparing them for something beyond their current understanding. The waiting period is never wasted. It is where your heart is refined, your ego humbled, and your faith strengthened. Without patience, you would never learn the depth of reliance on Allah. Without waiting, you would never discover the sweetness of trust. The Prophet A endured years of rejection, pain, and loss, yet his patience never wavered. He faced betrayal, hunger, isolation, and grief, and through all of it, he kept his heart anchored in Allah. That is what true spiritual power looks like. The ability to remain kind when wronged, to remain hopeful when tested, to remain grateful when deprived. Patience gives you mastery over your reactions, not your circumstances. It transforms every difficulty into an opportunity to rise above your lower self. It turns waiting into worship, pain into purification, and hardship into elevation. Patience also teaches humility. It reminds you that life is not in your control, that you cannot rush what Allah has decreed, nor delay what He has destined. This awareness breaks the illusion of control that fuels anxiety. When you stop fighting against time and start flowing with divine will, Your heart begins to rest. You stop asking when and start focusing on how to respond, how to grow, how to stay connected to Allah through every twist of fate. The one who is patient is not idle. They are actively submitting, actively trusting, actively persevering with dignity. Sometimes patience looks like endurance in silence. Other times it looks like effort through exhaustion. It can mean walking away when your ego wants to fight, or holding your tongue when anger tempts you to speak. It can mean staying committed to good when the results are slow, or showing gratitude even when blessings are hidden. Each act of patience becomes a shield protecting you from despair. It builds spiritual muscles that no comfort can build. Every time you choose patience over panic, you strengthen your connection to Allah. Every time you choose calm over complaint, you affirm your faith in His wisdom. Patience does not remove pain, but it gives pain a purpose. It doesn't erase your trials, but it transforms them into tools for spiritual growth. Through patience, you learn that peace does not come from the absence of hardship, but from the presence of trust. You learn that the test is not a punishment, but a process, one that molds your heart into something softer, wiser, and closer to Allah. The soul that learns patience becomes unshakable because it no longer depends on the world to find peace. It depends only on the one who writes every story with mercy and who promises that after hardship always comes ease. To have patience is to carry quiet strength in your chest, to face storms with the certainty that even winds are guided by divine will. It's not passivity. It's profound awareness that everything unfolds with purpose. It's standing still in faith while life moves unpredictably around you. It's choosing to keep your heart open even when it's hurting, to keep your tongue soft in prayer, even when you feel unheard, to keep believing that Allah is working in the unseen when your eyes can't yet see the light. Tawakkul transforms fear into freedom, because it is the art of surrendering your worry to the one who never fails. It is the quiet strength that grows when you stop trying to control the uncontrollable and start trusting the wisdom of Allah. Fear chains the heart. It tightens your chest, fills your mind with what ifs, and paralyzes your peace. Tawakkul, on the other hand, cuts those chains. It doesn't mean you stop caring or trying. It means you stop believing that the outcome is in your hands. It means you do your best while knowing that Allah's plan is always better than your expectations. True tawakkul is not a passive emotion. It is an active trust that liberates the soul from the prison of fear. Fear thrives where faith is weak. The human mind fears loss, uncertainty, and failure because it tries to protect what it loves, even when it has no power to control it. But tawakkul shifts the focus from the fear of what might happen to the belief that whatever happens will be filled with divine wisdom. When you trust Allah, fear loses its grip. You realize that every closed door is still within His knowledge, that every delay is a form of preparation, that every hardship is a message carrying something unseen. Tawakkul is like breathing in peace when the world gives you every reason to panic. It's the heart whispering, Allah knows what I don't, and His plan never harms the one who believes. The Prophet embodied tawakkul in every step of his life. When he hid in the cave during the hijrah, with his enemies so close that one step could have meant death, he turned to his companion and said, "Do not be afraid. Indeed, Allah is with us." That is the essence of tawakkul, knowing that divine presence is greater than worldly danger. Fear melts in the warmth of faith. The believer who practices tawakkul walks through storms with calm because they know that the one who controls the wind also controls its direction. The heart that trusts Allah is never truly afraid because it knows that no harm can touch it except by His will, and no good can miss it if He has written it. Tawakkul begins with effort. It means you plan, you strive, you work with sincerity, but then you release the weight of outcomes from your shoulders. You no longer measure your peace by success or failure. You measure it by trust. This kind of trust is not easy. It grows through trials, through disappointments, through moments when everything falls apart and you are left with nothing but Allah. It is in those moments that your heart learns its greatest lesson, that control was never power and surrender was never weakness. When you stop demanding that life unfold your way, you begin to experience freedom. You stop fearing loss because you understand that Allah never takes without replacing and never delays without reason. The Qur'an reminds us, and whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him. This verse holds the secret to freedom. To rely on Allah is to believe that His sufficiency is greater than your strategy, that His mercy is greater than your mistakes, and that His wisdom is greater than your understanding. The one who practices tawakkul stops chasing after what's uncertain and starts resting in what's guaranteed. The promise that Allah's plan is perfect. Fear comes from wanting to control outcomes. Freedom comes from realizing that the outcome was already written before you even worried about it. Tawakkul transforms fear into freedom because it shifts your inner world from panic to peace. It reminds you that you are not walking alone. It allows you to wake up every morning without being crushed by the weight of tomorrow. It gives you the courage to take risks, to dream, to move forward even when the path is unclear. When you have tawakkul, you no longer live for certainty. You live with certainty in the one who provides it. The storms of life may still rage, but inside you there is a calm ocean of faith that no wave can disturb. You start to see how fear is a test, not a punishment. Every fear you face becomes an opportunity to deepen your trust, to practice letting go, to remind yourself that Allah's decree is never random. The beauty of tawakkul is that it doesn't erase difficulty, it redefines it. You begin to see trials not as barriers, but as bridges. You understand that your losses are not signs of abandonment, but invitations to depend more deeply on the one who never leaves. Every heartbreak becomes a lesson in detachment. Every delay becomes a training ground for patience. Every disappointment becomes a redirection towards something better. Tawakkul transforms your perspective so completely that even fear begins to serve your faith. The more you rely on Allah, the less this world can frighten you. Fear often whispers, "What if I fail? What if I lose everything? What if things go wrong?" Tawakkul replies, "Even if I fail, Allah will raise me again. Even if I lose, Allah will replace it with something better. Even if things go wrong, they are still under His control." This internal dialogue is what sets the believer free. The heart anchored in tawakkul no longer runs from the unknown. It walks into it with confidence. You stop needing to know how things will happen and start trusting who makes them happen. That shift is the beginning of true freedom. Tawakkul also brings peace in relationships. You stop clinging to people out of fear of losing them. You stop trying to control how others treat you or how life unfolds. You love with sincerity, but without desperation. You give your best effort and you leave the rest to Allah. You stop chasing validation because you realize that the one who knows your heart already approves of your sincerity. You stop comparing your timeline to others because you understand that Allah writes every story with unique wisdom. This kind of trust frees you from the endless anxiety of trying to manage what was never yours to manage. The path to tawakkul often passes through pain. You learn it not in comfort, but in crisis. When you've done everything you can and still nothing works, that's when your heart begins to understand what reliance truly means. It's when you are forced to your knees that you realize your true position before your Creator. In that surrender, fear dissolves. You understand that Allah was never testing your limits. He was expanding your faith. Every hardship becomes a reminder that Allah's hand is guiding you even when you can't see the path. The soul that lives with tawakkul is light. It walks through life unburdened by what ifs. It doesn't panic over the unseen because it knows the unseen belongs to Allah. It doesn't cling to outcomes because it knows that every outcome carries divine purpose. It acts with excellence but rests with trust. It loves, works, prays, and strives, but through it all, it remains free inside. Fear becomes nothing more than a shadow that fades in the presence of faith. The one who has tawakkul walks through this world like a traveler, aware that nothing is permanent and that every step is guided by the one who knows what lies ahead. Tawakkul is not the absence of emotion, it's the mastery of it. You can still feel afraid, but fear no longer controls your decisions. You can still feel uncertain, but uncertainty no longer shakes your faith. You can still cry, but your tears are filled with trust, not despair. Tawakkul transforms fear into freedom because it connects your heart to the infinite, to the one who owns time, fate, and every breath you take. And when you finally place your trust in Him fully, you realize that there was never anything to fear, because the one who writes your story is the same one who promises mercy in every chapter